What is going on, college football fans, and welcome to Orange Heat. My name's Giovanni Heater, as always, and thank you so much for joining me. I got a friend on here with me today as a guest, DJ Villeneuve. How's it going, DJ?
What's up, everybody? How are you?
They can't respond to you, bud. I'm just messing around. Well, today we're talking ACC college football. We're going to do a preview and prediction of each team in the Atlantic Coast Conference. First, we're going to go through all the Atlantic Division. Then we're going to hit up the Coastal Division. And today, we're going to kick it off none other than the top dogs, the Clemson Tigers. DJ, tell us a little bit about the Tigers.
So the Tigers coming off a huge season last year. Had some struggles early with the quarterback position, but Trevor Lawrence really kicked it on. Really good team. I expect them to do just the same this year.
Yep, they're coming off of a big undefeated season and a national championship win there, just obliterating the Alabama Crimson Tide and really showing that they were the best team in the country last year, flat out. And guess who gave them the biggest fight? None other than our Syracuse Orange. Granted, Chase Bryce came into that game. Trevor Lawrence was knocked out midway through. It was his first career start, blah, blah, blah. There could be every excuse in the book. Syracuse played him tighter than anybody else last year. But this year, there's a lot of different things to look at. Now, obviously, Clemson's going to come in with that huge dynamic offense. Trevor Lawrence, again at quarterback in just his sophomore campaign, just a solid quarterback. He's tall, he can see over the line of scrimmage, and he can really find people in space. Another dynamic player for them is Travis Etienne at running back. Both him and Trevor Lawrence find themselves on a lot of preseason Heisman lists. And you might see both of them on the end of the list at the end of the year as well. They're just both that good. Travis Etienne, he's fast. He's shifty. He has a little bit of power to him, just enough to get his legs churning. And he's just a seriously deadly running back, especially once he gets out into space. Now moving on, the wide receiver core for these Clemson Tigers is insane as well. Amari Rodgers returns. T. Higgins is back, as well as Justin Ross. And those three, especially Amari Rodgers and Justin Ross, were humongous for the Clemson Tigers last year and their success. Hunter Renfro's gone. I don't think they're going to have any trouble filling those shoes really whatsoever. There's just so much talent on this roster, and they're so deep at the wide receiver position. These are some guys that you put up a 50-50 ball, and they can come down with it, 9 times out of 10. So exciting stuff if you're a Tigers fan. We're not whatsoever, but exciting stuff if you're a Tigers fan. Now, DJ, what do you think is the biggest problem going into this season for Clemson?
The biggest problem is that defensive line. Last year, they had a really strong defensive line, and I think they lost quite a few of them. So I think this year maybe they'll struggle defensively because they were such a great defensive team last year, and that's really what propelled them as well. The success was their awesome defense. I think this year their defense is going to struggle a little bit.
I couldn't agree more with you. The defensive line was huge last year. You had 3 guys go in the NFL draft. 2 of them were first rounders. Dexter Lawrence gone, Christian Wilkins gone, Cleveland Farrell. All 3 of them are gone, and those were elite NFL talent right there for the defensive line for the Tigers. And those are big shoes to fill. Now, Dabo Swinney, fantastic coach, good recruiter. He can coach up a team like no one else. But that's a little bit of a concern if you're a Clemson Tigers fan. And I think a lot of teams are going to try and exploit that this year, especially a team like Syracuse, because that's going to give Tommy DeVito a little bit more time in the pocket to see down the field. Now, enough about Syracuse. That's not exactly what this episode is about. But also on the Clemson defense, you have Tanner Muse, Xavier Thomas, A.J. Terrell, some solid guys returning in the secondary and at the linebacker position for the Tigers. But it's really going to come down to that defensive line, putting pressure on quarterbacks because, Clemson's going to score a lot of points, but they could find themselves in a lot of shootouts if they can't put pressure on quarterbacks. And I'm excited to see that because I don't think they're going to be as strong as last year for that reason, and you might see them fall to a couple of games. But nonetheless, let's dive right into it and talk about their schedule. We're going to do a preview and prediction right here. I'm going to read through the whole schedule, and then me and you will attack it. We don't know what each other picked. We each picked a different, we picked a winner or a loss, and we're going to talk about it. So we'll see. We might have some debate on here. Ain't that right, DJ?
Yes.
All right, so first they're going to kick off the season on a Thursday night, August 29th, hosting Georgia Tech. Then following that, they're going to host the tough Texas A&M team led by head coach Jimbo Fisher. After that, excuse me. After that, they come up to the Loud House Carrier Dome at 7:30 on September 14th. It's the game of the week. College game day might be there. It's excitement. That probably the toughest game on this schedule for the Tigers, because really they kind of have themselves an easier schedule here. After the Syracuse game, they're going to host the Charlotte 49ers. Following that, they're going to go on the road to North Carolina and play UNC, a new Mac Brown coach team. Then they're going to host Florida State. They're going to go to play the Louisville Cardinals on the road at the Papa John's Stadium. Then they're going to host Boston College, host Wofford, go on the road to face the NC State Wolfpack. Then they're going to host the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest. And the last game of the season, rivalry week, as always, they are going to travel down on the road just down the street and play the South Carolina Gamecocks. Now, going back up to the top of the schedule, kind of an easier schedule, one of the easiest in the country. The two tough games in there, really, I say, are the Syracuse game and the Texas A&M game. Those are back-to-back weeks. Georgia Tech, what do you got, DJ?
I got definitely Clemson winning against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is just – they're not all there. They're a very weak team. I think Georgia Tech will have a few wins on the season, but they're nothing of a threat to the big school of Clemson.
That's fair. Georgia Tech, brand new head coach there, taking over the helm. You know, they're doing away with the triple option, so you're going to see a lot of, especially week one, a lot of trial and error type situation. So no more option. They're going to look for more of a pocket passing presence. We'll see what happens. But, you know, you have guys recruited to play the triple option. Now you're telling them to do a completely different offensive system. There's some definitely room for error there. And they just don't have the size, talent, speed to keep up with a team like Clemson. I got Clemson in a blowout.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think that the Clemson offense will just tee off on the weak defense.
Absolutely. Following that, though, Clemson plays host to the Aggies of Texas A&M. Now, this could be kind of a trap game for the Tigers. What do you think?
It's an interesting game because it is at home, but Texas A&M is always one of those teams that you'll see kind of creeping in, staying maybe not in the top 25, but maybe they'll creep in at 22, 23. They're always there, and they're always a good team. So, I mean, it could give some trickiness, especially to that defense of Clemson.
Yeah, a lot of people are high on Texas A&M going into this year. I've seen them as high as, you know, number 9, number 10 in the country on some polls going into the season. So tough game for Clemson. Now, Texas A&M has a very talented wide receiver and a solid wide receiving core. Jimbo Fisher, second year under Jimbo Fisher. We'll see what happens, man. I think that this is one of the toughest games on Clemson's schedule. I have them winning it, though. I have them winning it. And I think it's kind of one of those games that could be a shootout, you know, towards the very end, especially with that defensive line not being able to put a lot of pressure if you're Clemson. You know, this could turn into a high-scoring affair, and it's going to become a point where Clemson just has to outscore the opposition. And
I agree. And also another advantage that Texas A&M has is their head coach was in the ACC for many years, Jimbo Fisher, coaching Florida State. So he knows their system and he understands how Dabo Swinney coaches. So definitely something interesting to watch.
That's a fantastic point you make there. It just comes down to, you know, I don't know. This could be a game as to who has the ball last, but it's hard to go against the defending national champs. Am I right?
I 100% agree.
Now, following this, they take a trip up to the Carrier Dome to play Syracuse. Flat out, who you got?
I got Syracuse, and the only reason I have Syracuse, and it's not because I'm biased as a fan.
We're biased.
We're so biased. But I feel like, you know, it's going to be a shootout, but I feel like in the end, Syracuse has just the better presence on defense to win the game. That's what it comes down to. Just because of, I feel like Clemson's weak point is their defensive line, and if we can get some of our running backs in there, and we can protect Tommy DeVito, we know how Tommy DeVito is. He can sling it. So if we can give him a few extra seconds, he's gonna sling it and he's gonna score.
Dude, I can't argue with any of that. And I know we might be biased, but I got Syracuse too. There's so much hype around the city. How do you excuse me, got a little bit of a cold going on. A lot of the guys on Syracuse, they've been at that stage before. They were there last year. Some of the guys were there the year prior, and they know what it takes to beat this team, and they know they were this close last year, and they did it last time in the Carrier Dome. That place is going to be sold out. It's going to be rocking. Clemson's barely even going to be able to communicate with each other. There's going to be so much hype around it. The Syracuse defense is by far the strength of this team this year. The defensive line for Syracuse, I think you're going to see Trevor Lawrence on his back a lot of the game, because that was another question mark for Clemson, is how are they going to replenish their offensive line as well? One of the things that kind of goes under the table that nobody really talks about, and kind of the unsung heroes, so to speak, is the offensive line. I think Syracuse is going to put a lot of pressure on Trevor Lawrence. It's early in the season. It's their first road game. And you have a lot of young guys on Clemson, guys in the linebacker spot, as well as the defensive line trying to fill in. It's their first true road game. Sometimes it goes down to the little things, like, do they know, going to bed at the right time, what their pregame meals, stuff that the luxuries they might not have at a home game. It's their first time doing these things on a road. When do they get the stretches in? And the little things are going to come into play there. And I think that's why this is perfect where it is in the season, week 3. It's so early on. It gives Syracuse a huge opportunity. Don't get me wrong. Clemson's going to score. Syracuse can score in bunches. They're going to get the run game going. Mo Neal, Abdul Adams, Jarvian Howard. I mean, the list goes on and on for the run game. And then you look at Tommy DeVito's going to sling it. Taj Harris, Nykeem Johnson, Tristan Jackson. I mean, there's so much depth at every position. The defense is going to play strong. The secondary, I could see Andre Sisco having a few picks. Drew Williams. It's just, I don't see how Syracuse could lose. I also don't see, I feel like it's kind of one of those 50-50 games. And the advantage goes to the home team in that situation. I'm going Syracuse. I feel like there's less for Clemson to exploit on us. Where are they going to exploit? We have an All-American secondary, All-American defensive line,
And I agree with you 100%. And I think, again, those little things that you talked about. And I think the Dome's going to be rocking. And it's weird because the Dome is an inside stadium. At least with an outside stadium, the noise kind of gets drowned out just a little bit. But with an inside stadium, it's bouncing off the roof. I mean, it's
made out of concrete, for God's sake.
I know it's going to be so hard for them to communicate with each other. And I think the young team that Clemson is and how experienced SU has with their whole team, I think it's going to be really difficult for Clemson to pull out a win.
Yeah, and that's what you lose when you have, 5 guys go to the NFL, That's what happens. Guys got to filter through. Syracuse, excuse me, Chris Slayton's gone, Dungy's gone, Custis is gone. The future's bright. I got Syracuse in this game. Early in the season, you know what's at stake. It's the Atlantic Division at stake. I got Syracuse.
Yep.
All right. Moving on. At this point, you see Clemson at 2-1. They're certainly not done by any means. They still have a chance to get at a national championship, depending on how everything plays out. Now, I said in my previous video that Syracuse would be in the ACC championship because what happens here is Clemson could still win out and Syracuse could still lose a game, but because of the head-to-head tiebreaker, Syracuse would win the Atlantic over Clemson, which is freaking perfect for us. The conference is decided week 3, basically.
Basically, unless SU has some blow up, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So Charlotte 49ers in Death Valley, no chance.
Not at all. I mean, it's not even going to be fun to watch. I feel like this could be a game where we see NCAA records broken. I feel like that Travis Etienne could go off in this game and probably run for 400 yards. And receive for 200 yards. I mean, it's not going to be fun to watch.
I agree. It's kind of like they lose to Syracuse, they're ticked. They just come off a national championship. That's a win. There's not even more to talk about there. It's a win. No. All right. After that, they're got to travel down to Chapel Hill to take on the Tar Heels. Now, this is a new team. Last year only won 2 games. I'm telling you, they were not as bad as their record last year. They almost beat Syracuse at the Dome. This was not a bad team. They were in a lot of nail-biters, lost quite a few games in overtime last season. They have a lot of depth at the running back position. Kind of some exciting things. Mac Brown taking over as head coach. What do you got here?
Clemson will just be too much. Dabo Swinney's such a good coach. I feel like that North Carolina, Mac Brown, a new coach at North Carolina, he'll get out coached. Again, the recruiting at North Carolina is definitely not as good as Clemson. I feel like Clemson's too fast, too strong, and too much for North Carolina.
I agree. Even on the road, Clemson takes care of business. I don't even really see it being close, to be quite honest.
No,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tar Heel fans. I'm sorry.
But it's the truth, and I feel like this North Carolina team could be okay this year and win a few more games, maybe like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But I don't see them being really one of those top tier teams that could beat Clemson at all.
I could see North Carolina being, a 5, 6, maybe 6 win kind of team. Definitely better than 2. Definitely better than 2, but not against Clemson.
No.
All right, moving on. Florida State in Death Valley. What do you got? Hosting the Seminoles. Year 2 of Willie Taggart.
I feel like
quarterback.
I feel like it's going to be an interesting game to watch, but I do again see Clemson pulling out the victory. I do see that Florida State could be maybe a threat because it's Florida State and
right.
they're it's Florida State.
No matter what, they have 5-star recruits.
Exactly.
So.
But as we've looked through this, they really have an easy schedule. The harder games that would be harder on the road are at home. So I think that because it's at home, I think they'll pull out the victory.
Yeah, I think they take down the Seminoles. Cam Akers at running back. This game could get interesting, but I just don't think this could be a game close at halftime. Clemson kind of pulls away in the second half, seals the deal type situation. I got the Tigers.
Yep, so do I. I think it's a done deal.
Yeah. Now, following that, they're going to travel on the road to Louisville.
Louisville, I also feel like
Louisville's a joke.
Louisville is a joke, and they're not going to be a good team again. No. They're probably going to have 1 win this year. So they're not going to be a good team. It's going to be an absolute blowout. The ACC is going to Louisville, they're going to ball at the end. They're just going to lay down and cry. I mean, it's not even going to be close.
Yeah, it's hard to beg to differ. I was not a fan of Bobby Petrino. Bobby Petrino is gone. Just goes to show what a quarterback like Lamar Jackson can do. He really kind of hid under a blanket all the problems going on in that program, and as soon as he was gone, the program fell to shambles. So I got Clemson in a blowout. I think Charlotte stands a better chance than Louisville, to be quite honest.
Yeah, Louisville's not a good team.
No. And then after that, Boston College.
Interestingly enough,
it's a home game for the Tigers. It's a home game as well.
I really think Boston College is going to win this game. And listen to me, Boston College is a team that I always feel like they have a good program, even though they may not be great. They're like Syracuse from 2 years ago. I feel like they could travel on the road. I feel like they can pull out an upset. I think that they're good enough to beat Clemson. They're not going to be a great team, but I think they're like one of those teams that Syracuse beats Clemson, and that's their biggest win of the season, even though they're 4-8. I think that's what I feel like with Boston College.
It's fair. Clemson's been beat in Death Valley before. Pitt did it a couple years ago. So it's fair. I don't see it. I got the Tigers, especially if they lose that game to Syracuse. It's kind of like they hone in and they really buckle up for the rest of the season. But if that's what you say, if they lose that game, though, if they lose again after Syracuse, that no college football playoff for them.
No
the
way.
Two-loss team has never made the playoff.
Nope. I don't see them. I do not see them winning that game.
I still think it would be tough for them to make the playoff, even with the one loss to Syracuse, if Syracuse went to the ACC
championship. Well, and if SU's only a one-loss team, I can't see Clemson being in the I think they'll definitely be in the discussion, but they won't make it.
Yeah.
But Boston College, I feel like it's like one of those things. Like, so you'll get one or two teams that you don't ever expect. That Boston College has nothing to lose at all when they're at Clemson. So go ahead.
Go ahead, James.
So I feel like they're one of those teams that will have nothing to lose, put everything on the line, and I think they could potentially beat Clemson.
Yeah, it's out there. But I kind of see Boston College as one of those teams. They're like, Steve Adazio has that program at like the epitome of mediocre. It's like 6 wins, 7 wins, 8 wins, 6 wins, 7 wins, 6 wins, 6 wins. Like, they're never going to get over that hump, but they're in a bowl game every year. But they've never gotten over that hump. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So So do you have Boston College beating Clemson?
Yes, I have Boston College beating Clemson.
All right. I got Clemson winning that game. But that's just me.
All right.
Following that, they're going to host Wofford. Wofford Terriers, baby.
Cakewalk. I think that Clemson's just way too much for Wofford.
Wofford's a fantastic basketball team this past season, though.
Wofford, they may be good at basketball. They're definitely not good at football. So I think it's going to be a blowout. And it's interesting, when I was looking through the schedule before the show started, it seems there's a smattering of non-ACC teams in the middle of ACC teams.
Yeah.
Like, we look at Syracuse's schedule, and after the bye week, it's straight ACC teams for the rest of the season.
Right.
So if Clemson loses that game to SU, I don't think they're going to be in the college football playoff solely based on their strength of schedule. Their hardest game this season, their hardest 2 games are Texas A&M and SU. That's it. The rest of them are pretty simple cakewalks for a team.
And like you have 2. Let's see, 1, 2. You have 2 cupcakes scheduled in there in Charlotte and Wofford.
In the middle of ACC, that's what I'm saying. So
they're
like SU straight ACC games for the rest of the season, and I think that that's an interesting token for the committee to see, because they're like, wait, they have Charlotte, and then they have Wofford, and they have Boston College in there. They have Florida State, North Carolina. They don't really have any tough teams. Like, if I was,
it's an easy schedule.
Correct. And if I was a program in Clemson, my thought would be, let's get some hard games in there. But there's no.
I mean, think about some of these teams they're playing in like specialty kickoff weekend games. Like Florida's playing Miami week 1. August 24th. It's the first college football game of the year. And it's like, Clemson doesn't do any of that. Alabama usually does that. A lot of SEC schools do that. Some ACC, Big Ten schools. Clemson has never done that since they've been where they are.
And SU, even like SU has Maryland in the first, who's a good team.
Right, so, Power 5 team.
Exactly. And I feel like
SU's got a very easy schedule, too. Syracuse's schedule is arguably easier than this. I mean,
yes.
But we designed it that way. We're also not defending national champions.
Exactly. And if you're defending national champion, I feel like that you should be having a harder schedule. But we can move back to where we were.
All right, Wofford win for the Tigers.
Yep, cakewalk. I don't see any problem with Wofford.
No, me neither. Following that, they're going to travel on the road to face the Wolfpack. What do you got?
This is going to be an interesting game. I feel like it could go either way, but I think that Clemson will pull this game out, but I feel like it'll be a close game.
You know, me too. As I take a look at my NC State sheet here, there's a quarterback battle going on right now there. There's some question marks at the running back position. Ryan Finley's gone. Dave Doran's a fantastic coach where he has that program right now, but it's on the road. I could see it being close for a little bit, but I got the Clemson Tigers.
I 100% agree with you. I think it's going to be close. I feel like it's going to be close for a minute, and then it's Clemson's just too much.
Yeah, agreed. Wake Forest in Death Valley.
It's going to be like 80-4. I mean, it's not even going to be close.
That's where here comes our debate a little bit here. That's where I beg to differ with you. I think Wake Forest is going to be a good team this year. I think they're a team that could win, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 games this year. And they're coming off 3 straight bowl wins, 3 years in a row.
It's and I understand your point,
but
I understand your point, but I don't see them having enough players and enough good, solid players that can defend, ETN. Trevor Lawrence. I don't see that I think they'll just get ran over just because of the pure talent of Clemson.
By no means am I saying Wake Forest is going to beat Clemson, but I'm saying I think it's kind of a closer game, and I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think you're looking at a 10-point game.
That's interesting. See, I feel like, and this is fine.
I think Wake Forest stands a better chance than NC State, to be quite honest.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I think NC State's going to get absolutely smacked. But I feel like a lot of the teams that I'm looking at are not going to be even close. It's not even going to be close.
Yeah.
With a lot of these teams.
Well, that's what happens when you're the defending national champs, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah.
But as I was saying before, I feel like it comes down to being an easier schedule, too.
Yeah, true. All right, I got a win for the Tigers against Wake Forest. You too?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I do.
All right, moving on. Last game of the season, rivalry week, week 13, at South Carolina, taking on the Gamecocks. What do you got?
I got another Clemson W. I feel like it's the end of the season. By that time, they'll be clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah.
It's a Clemson team that's just so good, and they have so much talent. By that time, they'll be probably one of the most unstoppable teams.
I also have the Tigers in this one. I think it's close. Here's why. South Carolina is no joke this year. They're coming in. They are expected to be good this year. They gave a lot of teams trouble last year. They gave Florida trouble. They gave LSU trouble. They hung in there with teams like the likes of Georgia. South Carolina's no pushover. I think they're going to give Clemson a run for their money late in the season. But as you said, Clemson clicking on all cylinders. They know with that one loss, their last chance at a playoff hope would be to win out. And I think they take care of business on the road against the Gamecocks.
And I agree. I think the Gamecocks are really a good team. And because it's on the road, I feel like that makes it a little bit it'll help South Carolina. But in the end, I don't think that they have enough.
Yeah, I agree. All right. That puts my final record predicting going into the season for the Tigers at 11-1. The same record as the Syracuse Orange. Syracuse Orange getting into the ACC championship, winning the Atlantic because of that head-to-head tiebreaker. You?
I have them at 10-2 because of that one loss to Boston College. Either way, I don't see them making the college football playoff. As I was looking through this, and even as we were talking in this video, I kept looking at it and thinking to myself, what hard teams do you have other than Syracuse and Texas A&M? Other than that, it's really a cakewalk.
Yeah. Do not get me wrong. Clemson is one of the most highly respected going into the season. I think they are like the most talented team in the country. But there's flaws, and teams are going to exploit those flaws, and the defensive line is going to become a problem. And ultimately, that one loss to Syracuse is going to cost them.
And I really don't think that their strength of schedule, as the committee looks at it, I think they're looking at it even more heavily, that they're going to be able to justify with a loss to a good Syracuse team them being in the college football playoffs.
I agree, DJ. I think we're done with Clemson then.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I can't wait to go to the next few people that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, coming up next, we are going to talk about the NC State Wolfpack. So we'll leave you guys for now. Thank you so much for watching. Let's go Orange, baby. Woo!